Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 9 to Side podcast, where we chat with super amazing and inspirational people who pounded the pavement before and after their 9 to 5s to get their side hustles off the ground. After listening to the interviews with these amazing guests, you'll walk away with a refreshed pep in your step and a newfound motivation to make your side hustle a reality. Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 10, season 2 of the 9 to Side podcast. Funny thing called editing with the podcast. So I didn't talk about this. I took a brief hiatus after episode 7, and then I picked up after episode 8, just to explain where I fell off the earth. I mean, it goes without saying, I sort of die inside a little bit during the winter months meaning like November through March. I fell off the face of the earth because we moved the day after Christmas. I do not recommend that. And by the day after Christmas, I mean legit December 26th. So it was literally like the Grinch that Stole Christmas. I was like, you like that gift? Put it in a box. I was like, everything's coming out of the walls, like nails included. I was like, we're stuffing that Christmas tree in a box. I was like, and we're moving out. And in like a week, I'll be back and I could just get everything set up and I could just, relaunch my podcast. So episode 10 is now where I'm recording. I'm picking back up doing my intros, and it's now January. But I'm super excited to be back. I have a ton of great guests who have been in the queue, who I've done interviews with months ago, and I want to get them out so you can listen to them. So my next guest, super excited about her. Her name is Kristen Donegan. Her company is Easy Teaching Tools, and she started this as a side hustle. She was a teacher. She went to school for her. She taught a bunch of different grades, kindergarten, first, second. She taught in beautiful places like Hawaii and all these amazing different places. She's incredible, super sweet. And she just on the side happened to be really good at creating resources, teaching tools, materials for teachers. And this is back in 2007. She would just sell them through a blog and then mail them out via hard mail. For those of you who are not familiar, you still just put a stamp on it, put it in the mailbox. So she would sell her materials that she created that way. Fast forward to, now she has a full-blown company. She's left teaching. She's been able to do that because she has 2 kids and has the flexibility now to run her own business. It's called Easy Teaching Tools, like I said, and she provides resources for teachers. And of course, it's grown. It has other facets. She's got a podcast. She does seminars. It's a whole bunch of things, but she has created that flexibility for herself, and she started it as a side hustle and grew it into a full-time business. So super excited for you to listen to my interview with Kristen Donegan of Easy Teaching Tools.
Well, my name's Kristen Donegan. I actually went to school to be a teacher. So I've got my master's degree and I taught for 13 years. And while I was teaching and getting my master's, I knew I wanted to monetize somehow my thesis. And so I did that and started, barely selling it. It really wasn't a thing. I made a website. It was really cheesy looking back, but I knew I wanted to help teachers outside of my district. And so now it's turned into a full-time thing where I'm working maybe 20 hours a week and have a team of 7 working for me so that we can help make teachers' lives easier.
Okay, cool. All right. So you first, right from the get-go, said you wanted to monetize your thesis, right?
Uh-huh.
So explain to me a little bit about like that idea, that concept and how that came about. Because a lot of people just sort of are working and they kind of have a passion or a hobby and it kind of organically happens. But it sounded like from the beginning, you went to school to be a teacher, but you were thinking about other ways to...
Yeah, I was teaching different, in the teaching world, it's called professional development. So there are classes teachers would take. And a lot of teachers were like, I love what you're teaching. I don't want to create this by myself. Can I just buy it from you? So that's kind of the idea where I got it from. It's like, hey, I could sell the stuff that I've been creating. And so, like I said, I put together a really lame website on GoDaddy with a link to PayPal. And at the time I would burn this, it was a family literacy handbook, onto a CD with like the whole label maker and the whole thing. And I would mail it out to people.
Oh, wow. That's how you got started.
I didn't even have a real laptop. I had a tiny little pink netbook.
Oh, okay. Because I was curious because I thought you, like in reading kind of your bio, I wasn't sure if you had started as a teacher and then you were creating these materials for yourself. Like, I guess explain back up, hold on a sec for the audience. So everybody listening can understand what it is that you're creating, like what your product is.
Yeah.
It's easy teaching tools. What is it that you create and offer?
So for the first few years, I was doing this after hours when I'd get home from teaching all day. And now they're just resources that teachers can use, like lesson plans, different activities. Now they download them from the internet. It's a lot easier than it was. But essentially, they're just like PDFs that they're downloading and using in their classroom. So that's what we've been doing. And then I was able to take that full time when I had my daughter. And now we create online courses and professional development for teachers all over the world.
Got it. So when you were saying your thesis, were you going to school for this particular study, like to create these kind of lesson plans and things? So was that what you were doing?
No, there was nothing even like that out there. No, I was getting my master's in education to be a reading specialist. And so my thesis was on family literacy with different activities and things like that teachers could use and bring family literacy to their schools. And then as I started creating resources for my website, I said, I want to do the same thing with my family literacy handbook, which is what it was. Until a friend told me, hey, there's a way easier way to do this. There's a website called Teachers Pay Teachers. Essentially, it's like an Etsy for teachers. And it's super easy where teachers go in, they can buy all the things that they need for their classroom, and then they just download it right then and there.
Oh, okay. Because for people who are not teachers like myself, who I'm trying to imagine, I'm thinking of myself back in college when I would like pay, or there's a store like for Cliff Notes where I could pay somebody who would, give me the notes for the class or something like that. That's like what I'm likening it to. But for people who aren't teachers, just understanding like how it works, how you get materials. I think a lot of people think, oh, you get like a set of things to teach with and materials and stuff at the beginning of the year. But is that not
No, it's essentially like lesson plans. So teachers have to teach certain standards depending on their grade level. And rather than recreating that lesson from scratch, because teachers are so short on time, they go in, they type whatever it is they're looking for, and then they get to choose what they want to purchase, what works best for them. And so then they'll get immediate access, just download it straight to their computer, and then there's the lesson, and they teach it in the next 5 minutes.
Got it. Okay. And so do they pay that, but like other people, who's creating the content for that?
People like me.
People like you. Okay.
And a lot of us started that way, putting it on this website, and then it grew. And then, you start to see that it's replacing your teaching salary. And then it's turned into this beautiful thing that I never even imagined. Like I didn't go to school for business. I have no idea what I was doing. And it's just lots of learning lessons. I love
when people talk about that, when they're like, I did not go to school for this. I don't know how it happened. The people that I interview, something that has to do with what you were doing. So it kind of organically works with what you went to school for. You're a teacher. I want to talk about and break down the business model and kind of the way you got started and some of the steps. So in doing this, you wanted to monetize what you said, what you were doing for your thesis, but was at the time, there was no one else really doing this. Because what year was this?
Probably back in 2009. Like I said, full on side hustle. I mean, maybe I'd make $20 a month.
Have you always had kind of a vision of, I would love to do something where I can structure my own hours? I know being a teacher, you actually have to be in the classroom and you have kids and, I'd really love to be able to structure my time differently.
I've always wanted to be a teacher. I love teaching. I'm really, really good at it. But when I saw this kind of take off, and then, like I said, having my daughter, I told my husband, hey, let's just try this out for 1 year. I'm going to leave the classroom for a year. Let's see how it goes. And then I thought I'd be going back. Like everything was still like boxed up in my garage. So it wasn't like intentional, like I'm going to build this thing. It really just kind of happened. And then it just started growing.
Let's just talk about like the curriculum and what you create and the different parts of the business, what you offer. When you decided to leave your teaching, were you making a salary that matched your teaching salary when you decided to give it a shot?
Yeah, I was still doing that when I was teaching. I would do that on the nights and the weekends. When I ended up leaving the classroom in 2018, we were still creating resources and lesson plans for teachers to download. But when I had my daughter, I knew I wanted to also monetize professional development class that I would teach around the nation. And so that's really our biggest revenue stream. What are we in 2022? A few years later. So that's where our big focus is. And then from there, we've just created other courses. We had a membership.
Yeah, because you have so many areas of the business. So for people who are listening who'd be interested in doing something similar or just like how you got started with just like the easy teaching tools, which was the lesson plans that you created, and you first offered those as just things that people could download. The next step was you created your website. Is that what you did to then offer things?
I've had a website the whole time, but what we ended up doing, I think when I left the classroom, I had a pretty large social media following at the time because teachers were coming to me for ideas. And at the time, I feel like I was one of the more honest teachers out there. And so I think that really helped my business as we started introducing more offers, is that I already had built up an audience that knew me and trusted me. And so I think that really helped us develop new content.
So how many followers do you have on Instagram? Is that like a main driver of bringing people into the course you created?
I would say that is, and our email list, Instagram, I think we're around 70,000. And then our email list is large and very active.
And how big is your email list?
I think we're around 60,000 now.
Wow, that's great. So tell people like some of the strategies that you use to grow your social media following, because that's obviously a big advertising avenues you use to get like new clients.
Yeah, for organic traffic, obviously, and I don't mean obviously because maybe people don't, but we run ads, Facebook ads and Instagram ads, especially during launch season to bring in new customers. But you don't have to be on social media to grow your business. That's just happened to kind of what worked for me. And it was all very natural. This was like before Instagram was as much of a thing as it is now. But wherever your people are at, I would go there and connect with them. So like I go on stories every day, kind of sharing behind the scenes of my life. I don't say I try it like intentionally to stand out, but I just feel like I don't share it like a lot of other people in my space.
Right.
Like I like to be a human behind the business, not just the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, and identifying your audience is for people that are listening or trying to grow their business. I think that's one of the biggest struggles is trying to find those people and get followers and understand who your audience is. So how much would you say for people listening, like in terms of an investment in Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising you've made in your business?
I want to scare anyone when if I share like the actual number, because you don't need to invest this much. We've been doing this for a few years and we know when we launch, it's all a numbers game essentially. So we know if we want a certain revenue, then we need this many people to come in. And so it depends. When I first started out, I'd spend maybe like a few $100s a month. And I feel like, I don't know why I feel like I'm going to throw up saying this because I don't want to turn anyone off.
No, I think it's important for people to hear because that's what's helpful for people is to understand. And not everybody has to do it. In the beginning, you didn't do any of that, right? And you're saying, so this is like a different phase because you started in.
We're in a much different area than we first were. Like if I think about this number now in the beginning, I'd be like, there's no way like you could buy a car with that. So for our upcoming launch, our ad budget is $80,000.
Wow. That's a really healthy, amazing ad budget, which says something about the state of your business. So in 2009, when you started, were you investing any money?
Oh no, I didn't know anything about ads up until a few years ago. And now I have for like these big launches, we have an ads manager who runs them all because I don't think I would know what to do with that amount of money.
So you do have a staff that works with you and somebody
during launch season, but during non-launch season, I just do it myself.
Okay. And launch season, when you speak about launch season,
for us in the teacher space, the busiest time is Q3 because that's summertime. So it's kind of when teachers are prepping. So for us, that's when our big launches for our course and some other things that we offer.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I know. I feel like it ends. It's already summer. School's not over. People are talking about, it feels like school's going to start in the next month. And people are talking about
Target already has back to school.
I know. I'm like, give us like a hot second to enjoy summer for just a minute.
It's never a break. But I want to say you don't need Facebook ads or even to be spending that. For me, it was not like that in the beginning. It was.
Yeah. And I
trial and error.
Well, and like I said, to show the timeline, you started this in 2009 and it's 2022. So you've obviously grown the business. You've got like the teaching tools that you provide and then the course. I want to talk about the different areas of your business and how they came about. So the course sounded like it was something you saw a need, created that, and then you started selling that. Is that recorded? So that's passive revenue, or are you doing that live?
The course, everything's all recorded, but when we launch, it's a live launch. We've done like a video series launch. And then last summer and this summer, we're going back to like a webinar.
Oh, cool. And how much do you charge for the series? Is it like a one time?
I should know that, but we've changed the price and now I can't remember. Yeah, it's a one-time investment and then they get lifetime access and different support and things. We'll have office hours and things like that for teachers. And the price has gone up. Like we originally started at $79 and it's all relative depending on your audience. And I think it's $189 now.
Oh, that's very reasonable though.
It is.
I think it's very reasonable.
You look at what they get and then what we offer. It's amazing. I wish I had something like this when I was in school. And it's what a lot of teachers tell us. It's showing teachers how it's creating like a work-life balance. And so it's showing them how they can consistently leave school at contract time prepared so that they can have a life outside of the classroom.
With having to stay after like the bell rings.
Yeah, everyone. Probably if you take your kids to games or different things, you see the teachers with like stacks of grading on their lap, or at night, like you don't always get to be present because you're catching up on emails. There's so much unpaid overtime that teachers give. It's 400 hours a year for free. And so there's so much that they miss out on. So I really want to help teachers.
So you came up with obviously the course yourself, and it
started out as organization. Yeah. My messaging has changed over the years and kind of honed in on that. I had an aha moment, probably my 8th year in the classroom, where I had essentially like a breakdown, an anxiety attack. I broke down and the doctor said, hey, you need to figure this out. You need to change something in your life so that you can still teach, but still get to come home. And so that's kind of how this all came about. I needed to find ways for me as a teacher to be more effective and efficient in my classroom. Girlfriend at the time and friend and daughter and sister. I did lots of trial and error. And then I kind of packaged all these up a few years later into our program.
Oh, cool. So it came out of like your personal experience and what worked for you. That's great. Yeah. And then do teachers get to, because I'm thinking of this as like in business world as something that's like beneficial to, enhancing your performance. Can they expense this? Is this something that schools pay for that you can kind of sell to the schools, or are you targeting individual teachers of any grade?
Yeah, we've gone back and forth with it. And I've talked with different friends in my mastermind. Most of the teachers are paying for this out of pocket. Sometimes they'll have schools reimburse them. We were talking about maybe doing purchase orders where the schools could buy it in bulk. But we found the teachers who have the most success are the ones who really want to do this.
And then I know you said they have lifetime access, so it's meant to be like a one-time course. It's not meant to, you don't come back and take it the next year. So you're really trying to
they can revisit though at any time or work on whatever they need right now. Oftentimes teachers are moving like grade levels or schools, so they can go back and revisit if they need support. And then we have different upsells and things for them later on.
Oh, nice. So I saw on your site, like in terms of your tactics at getting new clients, what are some of the tactics you use to drive, attendance and adoption for that program?
Yeah, we have a whole launch runway that we do. I worked with the business coach for a few years, so we are just ramping it up right now. Right. And so we try to create different opt-ins that teachers could use that are related to our course or to what we have to offer throughout the year, so that by the time we are here to offer this, it's like a no-brainer for them to be like, yeah, I want to continue.
Got it. And you offer, a lot of people who do coaching or offer this kind of business model do offer free content. And is the goal of that free content to kind of bring them into the paid content? You create that and then you're collecting their email address, and is that the strategy? Yeah.
Before I just offered free content with no plan or no real reason. So this year we've really focused on being really intentional. So now that we kind of are super clear on our signature program or our offer, the team kind of revamped everything. Eventually, we want to give them value. and help make their lives easier.
Well, and is this like a life cycle where you would get a teacher in and basically they could come to easy teaching tools for everything they need? They could get the resources for the classroom. They could attend your seminars and get everything in one spot from you.
It kind of used to be that way, but we've really decided to really like niche down and really focus on like organization resources for teachers and ways to save them time in the classroom. So really we're known for just organization. Like they know that's who we are in the education space. It's not like a one-stop shop because we don't give them everything like we used to.
Got it. And so, well, I think that's an important note about niching down too, because I think there's a lot of businesses who do a lot of everything. And so do you feel like just in talking about your journey and like where you came from and you talk about how you didn't know anything about business, like did you get people on board who really, or did you take outside courses or coaching who really sat with you and looked at your business and you came up with like a business strategy?
Yeah, I would say it's more of a natural progression. I've worked, I was in a high level coaching program with James Wedmore, and then I was in Rick Mulready's mastermind, but I wouldn't say they looked at it and said, hey, here's what you need to do. It just, I think from their coaching and from looking at like data and what was selling and what teachers really needed is kind of how I was able to hone in on, hey, let's really just focus on saving teachers time.
Got it. That's smart because you have a focus. Who is like your biggest competitor to you in this space?
There are a few out there. Really, I used to be very aware of like who's doing what. And now we just worry about us and what we can deliver and how we deliver. It's different than maybe other people are doing it because so many teachers don't put themselves first and they don't think of like, hey, what can I do to be a better teacher, to be a better wife? They're more focused on like, I need math resources and I need stuff for this lesson rather than like, how can I be more efficient?
That is interesting that you bring up that point because I mean, there's so much like just in the past, I give teachers and anybody that has done what you do and have done, especially the past couple of years, so much credit. I mean, I could never, ever do it. And I just think there's obviously so much burnout with teachers that I would think, have you seen an increase in people looking for, you have?
Yeah. I mean, I've always seen it in the profession. I mean, I was there in like my 8th year. There's this weird underlying message in the education space or in the teaching space. I see that. And that's where I saw a need for this. And we have so many teachers who come to us and like their objection is like, I didn't want to invest in this because, you know, teachers, one, are on a budget. They aren't paid what they should be. But then we also, on the other hand, have so many teachers who are like, I'm so glad I did this because it saved my marriage or it saved my relationship with my kids. Or like now my kids aren't the last ones being picked up from daycare. Like I actually get to be a mom. It's hard to imagine as a teacher that you can have both because no one shows you.
I don't think a lot of people know that either. I mean, I think that's an important thing because I think a lot of people who work in the corporate world, they assume that teachers get out at the same time that kids do and they're leaving when the bell rings. Teachers have the summer off. So, and that's obviously not the reality.
Well, it's also people don't know it's unpaid. Like right now, teachers aren't being paid. They're paid for 10 months out of the year.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Well, okay. So going back to the kind of business model and what I want to talk about, like you have so many things that you offer. You've got a podcast, you've got a blog that you write, you do all this other stuff. Is that like just added content that really is the main revenue driver is the course that you offer?
It is now. Yes. We have ad space. We're with an ad company for our website. So we get ad revenue, like ad pop up.
What's the ad company that you use?
Mediavine.
Okay. So for anybody using that, is that a company that anyone can sign up? Is that like an agency? How does that work?
You have to have at the time, like a certain amount of views and then they kind of set everything up. That's obviously not why we have a blog. That was just kind of a bonus.
And are you writing the content? Do you have a team helping write the blog? You also have an ebook as well. Is that right?
We have a bunch of different things. Yeah. I used to do all this myself. And then I said, I'm not practicing what I'm teaching about balance. Just as you grow naturally, you can't do it all. And so that's why we've slowly grown our team. So we have someone who writes our emails. We have someone who's in like customer support for the inbox. And it's different people on the team. We've really worked hard on growing our team. So they also handle like our Facebook groups and social media. So I really get to just focus on content and like writing the trainings that we're doing and being like the true visionary of the business.
That's so exciting.
And I had kind of a big scare when my son was born in September where I had to take off several months. And if I didn't have a team, and not that you need a team, but at the level we're at, like my business would have fallen apart.
Well, and that's amazing that you do have somebody that is the ultimate work-life balance, to be able to have your business that you grew. And then if you do have inexperience with family, be able to be present and be able to take time off and not have to worry about, what's going on.
I'm only working 15 to 20 hours a week so that I can also be present in my life. Life's too short. Like nothing is given. And so I just really want to make the most of the days with my business, but with my family too.
That's exactly what I think most people are striving for too. And a lot of people who start side hustles are really looking for that balance and be able to achieve their own schedule. And
it's hard in the beginning, especially because you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, or you're super passionate and excited. So you're working all these crazy hours, but then you look and reflect, you're like, wait, I just left the corporate world. So I wasn't working all these hours, just trying to figure it out and getting super clear on what's important to you and then creating your business however you want that to be.
Yeah. And I think for people listening, they can also, to your success, it can sound like it happened overnight, but obviously with your story, it did not. So can you tell anybody, sometimes all these pictures sound like, when you're hearing somebody, even for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds like so amazing. It's like you went from you left your job and now you have a successful business and you're laying out reading a book. Like, I wish I could do that. But obviously you've probably had setbacks. Like, can you think of any, huge, one of the biggest setbacks you experienced in kind of getting this business going?
I would say, I don't know if this would exactly be a setback, but this was definitely an area of contention with my husband, is getting him totally on board with leaving the classroom. Like, he'll still bring it up to this day. Like, well, you just left the classroom. But it was like, I had this set salary. So we knew every month what was coming in, and he could kind of did the finance so he could budget things. And so in leaving the classroom and not having set monthly income or waiting for a launch, like this is the first time I'm really launching. So I'd make like $15,000 in a launch, which was great, but that would have to cover months worth of income. So that was really a challenge for us. And so I'm super grateful that he was on board and was like, okay, let's try it out. So he's been along for the whole journey, but that was challenging. And that felt like a lot of pressure.
And then with COVID, was there a huge dip or a slowdown in your revenue, or did that actually help it?
Anytime like the loan people would call to be like, hey, do you need a loan? I'm like, no, we're good. They're like,
great. Actually,
they're like, you're one of the few. No, it did really well because we had to look at, kind of shift our messaging a bit and shift, like teachers needed different things. So we needed to solve problems for them.
Well, that's great. There's some businesses that obviously did well with COVID. And I think that, I'm in the live event space and it was not.
So that was not good for you.
Not a good space to be, but I'm glad to hear that your business did well. Looking forward in the next couple of years, what do you see for this business? Do you have a vision for other things you want to do, other areas you want to grow in it?
It's interesting. I want to go back to my coach and my team with this because the vision I came up with for the 5 and 10 year plan, I'm not totally sold on it. I kind of just am really, really happy with how things are right now.
Yeah. And I was going to ask if that has to do with your own personal kind of the way you're able to manage your life and more about that as opposed to the business, and just the fact that thinking about expanding involves obviously more energy, more time.
But it doesn't. And it doesn't have to. It's not a time or what's out there. I think just when my son was born, he almost didn't make it. I almost went into septic shock. There's different things where we were
that's very traumatic.
Yeah, I don't see us conquering the world or doing anything in districts or any of that right now. That's not what's fueling me.
Yeah. And I think there's nothing, I think there's something to be said. I always say this, like, cause in jobs or whatever, for what do you want to do next year? Like, where do you want to be? Like, there's always this expectation to keep, moving forward, and that moving forward equals success. I don't agree with that, especially all that's happened in the last couple of years, that there is something to be said for like enjoying what you've created, which is incredibly successful, and not having to feel like you have to push forward, and that being in the present right now and working on a very successful business and enjoying your family.
Well, no, we came up with revenue numbers and things, and it just wasn't exciting me. And the future is more for our team and moving some people into different leadership roles, and then having them own project or some sort of quarterly something that they're doing and they're in charge of. So it's not taking time from me, but it's really giving them ownership in something to grow the business. That for me is like ideal.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people say that. I interviewed somebody who said the biggest thing was like learning to kind of pass things off in the business and be able to allow other people to do things and not only one.
It's
doing
powerful.
That. So it's, How many people do you have on your team, just out of curiosity? And you also mentioned having a coach. So I was curious to know.
Yeah, we have 7 people on our team.
Awesome. And then you mentioned you have a coach, because I always, when I'm interviewing people about side hustles and their businesses, sometimes people do say that having a business coach is a really important investment.
For me, it has been. I think that's when my business really changed, and I started looking at more as a business and not a side hustle. When I was working with James Wedmore and his team, he's kind of big in the woo-woo space.
Wedmore?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really when my business transformed, because it wasn't just learning different tactics.
What kind of investment is it to make for a business coach?
I think it all depends on what you're looking for and what you want. His was a higher level coaching program from his signature program. So I think at the time, maybe it was $12,000. From there, moved on to a different coach and a mastermind. And that was high compared to, I guess, what I was getting in this. That was around 30,000.
Okay.
And I didn't see like a big change in my business. So I don't know. I think it all just depends. And now I'm working back with a one-on-one coach, and that's my favorite. So
that's great to have. I mean, I think that's really helpful to hear. A lot of people who would be listening, I do hear that commonly, that a lot of people have a business coach or some kind of coach that they get along the way somewhere. So
I think it helps you get results faster and helps you see things that maybe you can't see, and they call you on your stuff.
The last thing I just wanted to ask was if you had any advice for people. I mean, I feel like you wrote down some really great tips and advice, which I'll publish. But if you just, those were great, you can even share those.
I'm trying to think what I wrote. It's funny because I wrote a chapter in a book about the Edgepreneur's Side Hustle Handbook. So that's really what we focused on, is really get clear on who you want to help and why. Like, don't worry about the website and all the other things. Get clear on like a problem that your audience has and solving it.
I love that. And I think some other people have said that in different ways, but just focusing on you, I think you get really caught up in what other people are doing and trying to do stuff the way everybody says you should, and you should have 1,000 followers. So I think
you don't need any. You really don't. I lucked out, and that really helped me, but you can deal with that when the time comes. I would just get started. All your fears, all your things are going to pop up telling you why you can't do this or why you're not good enough or whatever it is, and still do it anyways.
It's really good to hear stories like yours, because I think people can know that it does take time to grow a business. It doesn't happen overnight. So it does take work, but it can end up like your story and be incredibly successful and create kind of like the life and the vision that you wanted.
I think this is my biggest tip I've learned in business, is I used to look at any time I failed, like maybe the launch didn't go the way I wanted or whatever it may be, and I'd make it mean like, oh, I'm not meant to do this. I should go back to the classroom. People don't like me. It's like none of that stuff. I would just look at any time something doesn't go the way you want it as some sort of lesson. Like, what can you take away from this to make it even better next time? Because you're going to mess up a million times. And it's not good or bad. It's just you're going to. So just how can you get better each time?
I love that. a lot of
But
people
people do.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of people start stuff and quit because it is hard and, you get defeated and feel bad about yourself. And it's really,
Well, that's when all the coaching stuff really is
yeah.
helpful, because if I didn't have a coach, I would believe those stories that like, I'm just not meant to do this.
So that is really helpful. And I really appreciate everything you being on. So lastly, just tell everybody where they can find you on social media, your website, all that good
Yeah,
stuff.
we're just easyteachingtools.com, and on social, that's where we are, Easy Teaching Tools as well. And then we've got a podcast, Real Teacher Talk, on all your favorite streaming platforms.
All right. Well, thank you so much.